Hey everyone, welcome back to Next Chapter Audio, where we settle in, turn the page together, and talk through the books everyone's whispering about, or loudly shouting about on the internet. Today's video is a little different, because the book we're talking about comes with a lot of cultural momentum already attached to it. Not just because it's new, not just because it's trending, but because of who wrote it. We're talking about Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy, her debut fiction novel, released this month, and the follow-up everyone has been watching closely after her record-breaking memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died. And if you remember how that memoir landed, the way it dominated bestseller lists, sparked conversations everywhere, and became one of those books that people recommended with this intense seriousness, then you already understand why this new release is such a big deal. Because the question isn't just, is the book good? The question a lot of readers are bringing into Half His Age is, what does Jennette McCurdy do when she's not writing herself? When she's not writing a memoir that feels painfully real, razor-sharp, and emotionally raw? What happens when she takes that voice, that edge, that control over discomfort, and uses it to build fiction? That's why this book is trending so hard. The transition itself is the headline. People are fascinated by it. Video essays are popping up. Think pieces, reaction videos, threads, because readers aren't only reviewing the story, they're re-reacting to the shift in genre, the shift in tone, and the shift in expectation. And Half His Age doesn't exactly play it safe. This is a darkly funny, sharp-edged novel that digs into adolescent desire and the messy, complicated realities of power dynamics. It's not trying to be sweet. It's not trying to be comforting. It is one of those books that walks into the room and immediately makes you aware of where the tension is hiding. And if that sounds like something Jennette McCurdy would write, you're not wrong. From the first pages, you can feel her voice. It has that same sense of control she had in her memoir, the way she can describe something awkward or painful with this almost casual bluntness, like she's holding up a mirror and refusing to soften what you see. But what's interesting here is how fiction changes the effect. Because with the memoir, you are reading someone's real life, and the honesty was part of what made it hit so hard. You could feel the courage behind the sentences. With Half His Age, the question becomes, can that same voice carry a fictional story without the "this really happened" weight behind it? And I think the answer is yes, but it's a different experience. This book has the emotional bite McCurdy is known for, but it uses humor differently. It leans into discomfort like it's an artistic tool. It creates moments where you laugh and then instantly feel guilty for laughing. The kind of laughter that catches in your throat because a second later you realize what you're actually reacting to. That's what darkly funny really means here. It's not jokes for the sake of jokes. It's comedy as contrast. Comedy as a pressure release. Comedy as a way to survive the fact that what's happening underneath the surface is complicated, messy, and not always easy to look at directly. The story centers on adolescent desire. And I want to pause on that for a second because this is one of those topics that can be handled in shallow ways by a lot of fiction. It can become either romanticized or sensationalized, depending on the author. But McCurdy doesn't romanticize it. She writes adolescence the way it actually feels: intense, confusing, unfiltered, sometimes embarrassing, and often shaped by forces the adolescent doesn't fully understand yet. She captures that emotional tunnel vision teenagers can get, where one feeling becomes the entire universe, and logic doesn't matter as much as the sheer weight of wanting something. And paired with that is the theme that makes this book difficult, in the best way: power dynamics. Half His Age isn't just about desire. It's about the imbalance around desire, the way age, authority, experience, status, and control can distort what a relationship looks like on the surface versus what it really is underneath. It explores the blurry line between a young person thinking they're making their own choices and the reality of being shaped, influenced, or manipulated by someone with more power. And the book doesn't point at it like a lesson. It shows you, it lets you sit in the discomfort. It lets you experience the confusion from inside the character's perspective, where everything can feel thrilling and terrifying at the same time. That's part of why it's so discussion-heavy online. People aren't only reacting to plot, they're reacting to the themes, to what the book implies, to how it frames the imbalance, to how humor complicates your response, to how it makes you question your own instinct to label things simply. Because Half His Age doesn't feel like a book that wants to be reduced into neat morality. It feels like it wants to show how complicated and ugly things can become without anyone in the moment fully understanding the consequences. And that's an adult thing to understand, right? Teenagers often don't have that overhead view. They are inside the experience. They're living moment to moment. They're feeling things too intensely. They don't have the distance yet. So when fiction successfully captures adolescence, it often feels like you're rewatching someone walk closer and closer to danger while believing they're rewalking toward love. That's where the tension comes from. That's where the tragedy can come from. And McCurdy plays with that tension so well. The writing itself is a big part of the experience. It's sharp. It's clean. It doesn't waste words. It has that controlled voice that makes even uncomfortable moments feel strangely readable. And there's something about that style that makes it even more unsettling. Because the language doesn't soften the subject matter. It makes it feel more direct, more immediate, like you're being forced to stay present in scenes you might normally want to skim past. At the same time, the voice is funny. Not warm and fuzzy funny, but dry, observational, sometimes biting, sometimes cruel in a way that feels honest rather than mean. The humor creates a strange intimacy with the reader. It feels like the narrator is letting you in on something, like you're being invited to witness these moments, not as an outsider, judging from a distance, but as someone who has to sit in the nuance. And again, that's classic McCurdy. Her memoir had that exact same effect, the ability to make you laugh and flinch in the same paragraph. What's different is that in fiction, the laughter feels riskier, because in memoir, you know the author survived it and is now telling you the story. There's an implied safety in the fact that you're reading from the future. In fiction, you don't have that safety. You're watching the character live it in real time, and you don't know how it is going to end emotionally. So every funny moment comes with this sense of, okay, but what's this covering up? And I think that's part of what makes the book feel so compelling. It's uncomfortable. Yes, but it's not sloppy discomfort. It's intentional discomfort. It's discomfort that feels crafted. Now, I want to talk about what makes this a strong debut novel specific, because debut fiction after a memoir like I'm Glad My Mom Died is a very tricky move. That memoir wasn't just successful, it became a cultural moment. It was one of those books that created a new level of expectation around McCurdy's writing. So Half His Age isn't being read like a normal debut novel. It's being read through a magnifying glass. People are comparing voice, comparing emotional impact, comparing the sharpness, comparing the honesty, comparing whether the same storytelling strength transfers into fiction. And here's what I think. If you come into this book expecting the same emotional devastation as the memoir, you might be surprised. It doesn't hit the same way, and it's not trying to. This isn't a book that wants to leave you crying quietly at 1 a.m. It's a book that wants to leave you sitting in discomfort and thinking, oh, that's complicated, and maybe replaying certain scenes in your head, and maybe asking yourself why you reacted the way you did. It feels more like a sharp social exploration than a pure plot-driven story. It's less about what happens next, and more about what does this mean, and why does this feel like this? That's why it's perfect for video essays. Honestly, because it invites interpretation. It invites analysis. It invites discussion about how fiction can explore power imbalances, adolescence, the gaze of adults, the way young desire is shaped by adult attention, and how humor changes the emotional tone of heavy topics. It also invites discussion about author identity, the transition from memoir to fiction, and what it means when an author known for personal truth shifts into invented narrative. There's a lot to talk about. That's why it's trending. Now, let's get into what works best in Half His Age. What makes it land? First, the voice. The voice is the strongest element. It's unmistakably McCurdy. It's sharp, controlled, readable, and intelligent. Even when the scenes make you uncomfortable, you keep going because the writing has grip. Second, the humor is effective. Dark humor is difficult. A lot of writers try it, and it either feels forced or it feels like it undercuts the subject matter too much. Here, it feels purposeful, like the humor is part of how the character processes what's happening. Third, the book doesn't oversimplify its themes. It doesn't spoon-feed you conclusions. It trusts the reader to sit in the nuance, to feel conflicted, to recognize the complexity. And fourth, it captures adolescence in a way that feels emotionally true, not sanitized, not exaggerated for drama. It feels raw in a very believable way. Now, what might not work for everyone? T's book won't be for every reader. And that's not a flaw. It's just the reality of what it's doing. If you want a traditional thriller pace, if you want constant twists and shock reveals, this isn't built like that. If you want a straightforward story with easy characters to root for and simple moral lines, this might frustrate you. If you're uncomfortable reading anything that touches adolescent desire or power imbalance themes, this book may be difficult to sit with. It's not graphic for the sake of being graphic, but it is emotionally direct, and it doesn't shy away from the tension. Also, if you come in expecting the memoir experience, you might feel a gap because fiction doesn't carry the same autobiographical punch, and that's okay. It's not trying to replace her memoir. It's showing you what she does with storytelling when she's freed from telling her own story. And that freedom creates a different kind of weight. So here's my final verdict. Half His Age is a strong debut fiction novel. And it's especially impressive because it doesn't feel like it's trying to win readers by playing safe. It feels like McCurdy wrote the book she wanted to write, not the book that would be easiest to sell. It's darkly funny, emotionally sharp, and full of uncomfortable nuance. If you like books that make you think, books that invite discussion, books that feel like they poking at the places society gets tense and quiet, you'll probably find this fascinating. And if you're someone who loved I Am Glad My Mom Died, and you want to see what McCurdy's voice looks like in fiction, this is absolutely worth picking up. Not because it will feel the same, but because it will show you how much control she has as a writer. And that's the real headline here. McCurdy didn't just write a best-selling memoir. She can write, and Half His Age proves that. And that's it for today's review on Next Chapter Audio. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what do you think about authors switching genres? Do you love seeing memoirists jump into fiction? Or do you prefer when they stick to what made them famous? And if you've already read Half His Age, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did it challenge you? Did it surprise you? Did the humor work for you? Or did it make the book even more unsettling? Until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you in the next chapter.